I am Ian Harris. I'm the CEO of Outcrop Silver. Our flagship project, Santa Ana, located in Colombia, is one of the highest grade resources in silver and one of the few primary silver projects in the world.
Hello, my name is Jorge Ramiro Monroy. I'm the CEO of Raina Silver. We're an exploration company with 4 projects. And this summer, we're focusing on the Griffin project in Nevada, which is a big CRD Carling type target. And excited to be here in this panel. Thank you, Matthew, for the invitation.
I'm Jason Weber. I'm president and CEO of Silver North Resources. We're a silver exploration company focused on the Yukon Territory. Our flagship project is the Haldane high-grade silver project in the historic Keno Hill district, over 100-year-old mining district known for its very high silver grades.
Guys, thanks very much for joining us today. We're going to be talking silver. Obviously, silver price has been on a bit of a tear recently. I think everyone's hoping it will kind of slingshot past gold. Hasn't quite managed to do that yet. On a bit of a pause right now. But I guess good news with the Mexican elections, people feeling a little bit more positive and a little bit more hopeful about the future. Ian, what's your take on that?
Yeah, the elections, I think there's a little bit of a surprise, but I think things are looking good. I don't think it's 100% on solid ground, so it's a little bit of wait and see. But normally you see action, the most important action, and immediately after elections. Obviously, 30% of all silver is produced out of Mexico. But I think there's a bigger underlying picture. We don't have assets in Mexico. And I think, honestly, there's such a big supply-demand deficit that is going on and building right now that I think it's independent. We could add 25% more production, and solar panels would rip through that in 2 months, right? So just solar panels. So I think there's a bigger picture going on. I think that silver is going to be the face child of strategic metals for the energy transition. Like, this is like the proof in the pudding, right? Is that it's really showing that these are critical minerals, and this is really happening in front of our eyes, and it's not just talk on the street.
Right. Okay. And I think it's always, because it's still such a big part of the Mexican output for globally. Jorge, the country well. You obviously had to maybe even adapt your plans while things were sort of on pause there for a bit, but heading up to Nevada. What's your take after the elections?
Well, it was a stunning election. I think we all kind of had a sense that she was going to win. But I think none of us expected the magnitude of the victory. She basically won 60% of the vote, Congress, Senate, most of the governorships. It's an incredible mandate, and the surprising thing about it too was not just the lower classes. She won the middle class, the lower middle class. She did well with the upper middle class. Didn't win that, but still, So it's an incredible mandate. The jury's out as to what path she'll take for mining. It's really, I don't think she was very careful. To my knowledge, she not once mentioned the word mining during her campaign. So it's a little bit of look. The best hope is that now that a lot of the rhetoric from the last election was electoral. So the sitting president was kept bashing mining through the 6 years, but really didn't make any significant change. So a little bit to Ian's point, I was just reflecting on this morning. I mean, Mexico produces silver at $7 per ounce in more than one of their mines. You look at Torex is basically in the worst part of Mexico security-wise, consistently producing, silver at $700 per ounce, all in sustaining. There's a big margin. So the main focus for this new government is likely going to be, more social license to operate, consultations with the local communities, care of the environment. I think if they do things right, my feeling is we might see, like, for instance, a company like ours, Raina Silver. I think the market is assigning very little value to our Mexico properties. Because our main focus over the last 12 months has been Nevada. So I think, for those of you who might be listening to this and have silver equities in Mexico. My personal feeling is that it will surprise us. Like whatever happens in Mexico over the next 6 months will surprise us more to the upside. And the reason I say this is, I think at the end of the day, the mandate is so overwhelming that they don't really need to do any politics, any campaign. No question, people want that government to be in place. So hopefully they just make good decisions. I think it's, like I said, there's plenty of margin there where the new government's policies can be achieved, and then it'll be a little bit to the industry to try to educate the new government as to the benefits of mining, et cetera, et cetera. So fingers crossed we have a positive outcome, but I think it is definitely within the realm of possibility.
Okay, great. And Jason, if I may just jump in, get Jason in the mix, and then we can all maybe have a discussion about some of the other kind of drivers on this one. So Jason, silver, unlike gold, doesn't really have the support of central bank buying at the moment, but it does have this industrial use, which is solar panels, where we're seeing obviously a lot coming out of China, and a lot of buying. Do you see that as the kind of savior for this space? Do you see this as something which might help silver price, get past this pause that it's on at the moment?
I do. I think you look at the silver price and the run we've had since, call it the end of February. I think that's largely been driven by economic and geopolitical situation, but I think the backdrop for silver is so strong with the industrial demand. If you look at 2013, I think industrial demand was 40% of the overall silver market. I think we're up to 60% now. New solar panel technologies are only calling for more silver, 50 to 150% more silver per panel. And those are becoming the dominant, more efficient panels to be built. So I just see this constant upwards pressure in the background that this industrial demand is putting on. And we always talk about solar panels, but there's so many other facets of technology that silver is really gaining a lot of momentum. And one that it's really intriguing to me, and we'll see where it goes, is hydrogen fuel cells, and the fact that silver is being used as a catalyst now, and a much more efficient catalyst, cheaper and more efficient to make. So I see that as going forward very, very strong push upwards on the silver price.
Okay. So and Ian, just for you, I've had discussions recently here with various institutional investors, and they're talking about there's not a lot of pure play silver companies out there. So it's very, very hard to actually address saying, I am investing in silver here. It seems to be more precious metal play where you're kind of getting silver as a byproduct of something, usually gold, copper, that sort of combo. For you as a company, how do you kind of address those sorts of institutional investors who say, well, perhaps you could start looking at us because why?
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for leading me right into, Outcrop Silver and Santa Ana project is 75% of its value is silver and the other 25% is gold. And it's one of the true silver districts. There's not very many true silver districts in the world, Mexico, parts of the United States, and Colombia. Since colonial times, there was a time that Colombia was the third largest producer and in colonial times of silver, and it came out of this district. So we definitely make sure it's very loud and clear that we are a primary silver project because they're so rare. They just don't exist. And I'm sorry going to move sideways, but I like to beat this a lot is not just the industrial side that is really taking off. And, solar panels, I'd love using the example because now it's into percentages that it's 20% of supply, right? And so any new technology can eat up a massive amount of silver, and it becomes, as technology moves forward, it seems like it's sprinkled in within all these different technologies. So there's going to be strong demand. And it's completely different than any other silver spike that we've seen in the past, right? I used to say before it took off, I said, I don't know when the wheels are going to fall off. I don't know what's going to be the specific catalyst, but it's going to happen. And once it does, then everybody's going to get the picture, right? So in this case, it might have been a geopolitical situations in the world, as Jason explained. But now that they're off, it's going to be really hard to put them back on. And then going off of something Jorge said, it's interesting how price agnostic silver production is, right? There's some really low cost producers. They don't care what price. They're going to keep producing. There's very few projects that are marginal on silver price of whether or not they get started up or not. But the other 70% could give hoots, right? Like maybe a couple of lead zinc projects care and they become economic based on silver price, but you're never going to build a copper mine where 30% of the world's production comes from because of silver price, right? It's not going to happen. So there's a lot of room to keep going.
Anyone want to jump in on that? Do you agree? Disagree?
Well, I do agree. And I think it's really interesting having just made the transition from a company that was kind of metals agnostic, looking at, we explored copper, gold, and then realizing or coming to the understanding that the silver market and where it was going, and having two solid, really good silver projects in the portfolio kind of led us to just shed the rest and say, let's focus on silver. And I think what we've really seen is that there's an investor base out there that is very tied to silver, and they really like it. And we've been able to tap into that market where, so we talk about there's not very many, especially on the exploration side, like, at Jorge and my level, when there's not very many pure silver explorers out there, just like there's not very many pure silver producers. And so I think it really focuses a lot of eyes on just a few companies quite quickly. So I just went through a process in the last year of really taking a focused look at silver and where it might be going, and kind of kicking myself. Why didn't I realize this a lot sooner? The silver market is a place that we really wanted to be.
Something you've all got in common is you've raised money recently, and it's been obviously strange 3 years, and it's nice to sort of see this side of that. In 2024, silver moved through the phases in terms of pricing. It's got people super excited, but it's hard to kind of get the money to kind of trickle down into Explore Co. quickly. It'll come, but it takes a while. So when you're out raising money and you're speaking to investors, whether they be brokers or retail or where, these town hall things that you guys do, what are the concerns of the investors around the I guess traditionally either erratic behavior of silver in some instances, or for others which are I guess silver bugs, which are pretty hardcore set of guys. What are their concerns? I mean, Jorge, let's bring you into this.
Yeah, so I mean, the one big concern is, it's been touched by both Ian and Jason, is that the universe of investable, especially in the exploration space, is quite small. So our peer group of companies attracts actually an unusual amount of institutional investors compared to, let's say, something a similar size but gold equivalent. Like a gold company, there's so many juniors. Typically, you don't attract institutional investors. When silver gets going, and I've already experienced this in that big run in 2020, 2021, all of a sudden you look at your register and you have all these institutional investors who typically would not play in this space. One of the things that they're looking at is quality management, quality projects, and liquidity. Right, that's very important for investors, that your stock has enough liquidity, especially for institutions, because they typically write you a big check, and they're not going to be trading in and out. They have a position that they'll keep, and at some point they expect to come out, exit the investment, and they want to know that there's enough liquidity in the stock. So it's what we have done as a public company since we went public 4 years ago is focus on having quality projects with very clear explanations for use of proceeds, and we say this year our objective is this, and this, trying to stick to timelines, demonstrate that we're moving the projects forward, and then making sure that we communicate the plans and the message of the company widely, so that you can have create a market that lets investors feel comfortable that at the moment when they do decide to come either in or out, there's going to be enough liquidity for them to do so in a sort of orderly fashion. But one of the things that's, and I think Jason touched on it, is from the company side, it becomes obviously a challenge to two things. On the one hand, you have investors who are, whether institutional, retail investors, even the silver bugs themselves. It's tough to digest the volatility in both the price of the metal, and then like you put an amazing drill result. Like, we have a primary silver project in Mexico. I think we put off the top of my head several kilos of silver over a wide intersect, and our stock went up 5%. And then silver moves from $21 to 25 cents, and the new market cap doubles. So it's just in that sense, makes it difficult for people to invest in silver space. However, over the last little bit, basically whatever we've been talking about for so long regarding silver prices is actually happening before our eyes. We're now 4 years of strong silver prices that undoubtedly, I think if you ask all of us, it still seems cheap, and the equities are still not moving right across the sector. So I think that if you take a little bit of a longer view for investors, it's a perfect time to invest. And then what we like to say as a company is we focus on high grade silver. And a project that can produce under any silver price scenario, so that you are not then subject to the volatility of silver prices. But generally speaking, I think look, it's a fantastic time to look at silver still. Silver equities. Maybe the last, I know this big comment, but the very last point that I'll make is, when the institutional investors go and look, okay, let's allocate money to silver. All of a sudden I start looking, Fortuna Silver, it's I don't know, 50, 60% gold. Those pure silver stories are no longer there. And the reason why is because there aren't too many 100 million plus silver ounce projects out there. So the role we're playing in our peer group is very important. And there is a scarcity element to exploration silver projects that have that potential to become not just a small primary silver mine, but a bigger 100 million plus silver producer down the road.
I hear what you're saying, and Ian, right? You heard what Jorge had to say there. Sometimes whatever news you put out, it could have a small effect or no effect, and then something else completely out of your control, drives a huge gain, or the reverse. We've also heard some companies, not enough companies, I think, having to say, look, whatever we're doing is not working. We've got to change the record. We've got to change the way we do things, and we've got to change the way we behave and what we say to the market. You're one of those companies. You decided we got to change. What did you do? How's it worked?
These are conversations, and it's all. And one of the things that the most important takeaway is market changes, and it changes fast, and you have to be ready to change with market or have a plan A, B, C, and D in place because things are changing quickly. Let's just compare 2 months ago to where we are today in silver. And one of the decisions, for example, based on the run-up of silver prices, I had been saying for a long time, we only really can justify one drill turning, but we need to keep one drill turning to make sure we keep significance in market and in news flow. And then immediately mobilized the second drill recently because there is more interest. But what I actually get excited about was one of Jorge's comments is they put out 7 kilos over an intersection and nobody cares. I mean, they did care 5%, but for us, that's a small move. But then silver breaks 30 and they double their market cap, right? But that means that we're only seeing investors and the type of investors that are playing on that volatility, right? Institutions hate volatility. but there's a bunch of people who love it. And now that Bitcoin has an ETF and there's funds in it, and we're going to see a lot less volatility, they're going to be looking for the next thing with volatility, right? We're also seeing on our stock, the majority of buying is coming out of the United States. So we're seeing a shift in the overall investors and what people are looking for. And the majority right now are just unsophisticated. Unsophisticated is probably a terrible word, but they're playing off of a price difference in silver. They see silver goes up 5%. They know Outcrop's going to go up 10%. Right. So they're playing off of that to be able to leverage the silver play. But it's going to get a lot more eyeballs on the space, and people are going to start caring about those results because I love the silver story right now, right? Because even Jorge had another thing. Silver producers are no longer silver producers. Why? Because there's not enough silver projects to expand and grow on. They're converting themselves. They're becoming gold producers, and they're saying we're still a silver producer because they like the multiple they get in market on for being called silver, but they can't do that forever, right? So for our strategy, one is another one we get talked about a lot of producers, because they saw the old cycle. They want to say, what is your pathway to production? How are you going to get this thing into production? You love my little piece of silver, but we actually took some of our flotation to demonstrate you could smelt it directly. And we're working on a pathway even to do a small pilot level production so that you can leverage a quick production pipeline. But the other one is, we used to be called Outcrop Silver and Gold, and we're definitely not Outcrop Silver and Gold anymore. We're just Outcrop Silver. There's a lot going on, and the market is changing dramatically. And I think that it's really important. We have a main strategy, and that's demonstrating a pathway over 100 million ounces plus, making sure that we are taking advantage of talking about how we're a true primary silver producer, but we're also got a plan C and D and E, because we know the market's going to shift and it's become interest, and we can show, we can have like a little menu available to be able to drive the project forward efficiently.
Well, Ian said something that really twigged with me, is that, when you talked about having one drill and then now you've gone to two drills just because of the way the market has changed. And it is so true. Like you really do have to make hay while the sun shines. And for us, that's a priority now, is getting drills on the ground on our projects, so that while we're in a good silver market and eyes are on silver, we're producing results that are going to bring investors in. And classic example is that at our Haldane project in 2020, we made a discovery, kind of proof of concept for us, in that we knew we had high grade and we knew we could get thick veins, but we never had a grade high enough above cutoff at next door at Keno that was of great width. And we hit 300 grams silver, 311 grams silver over almost 9 meters. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Okay, now the story's coming together. And by the time we got results back, it was fall of 2020 drilling. We get the results in 2021, get them compiled, checked, and we get them out. And the silver Reddit craze had just topped the silver market, and we did nothing but put out silver results in a downward market after that. So we'd get a couple days of trading. People who like silver would see, oh yeah, they've got more great results, but there just wasn't that constant push in the silver market. And that's kind of the difference. If that story unfolded now, we released that drill hole now, I think it would be a completely different trajectory for the company. So, being mindful of where you are in the cycle. I mean, a small company like ours, you add ounces, you're adding a tremendous amount of value. So in a down market, you can still add value, but at that discovery stage, it's kind of really important to make sure you've got the wind at your back so that you can continue to build on what you're doing.
Well, it's wind at your back, but you also need money behind you, right? And I think we've seen, certainly this is the talk. I was at a conference last week in Quebec, and I was up on stage with a few silver guys and I guess and gold guys and lithium guys, etc., copper, etc. The talk of the conference was around what's happening at the larger end. We've obviously had BHP Anglo. It kind of fell on its back, but we've been involved with at least 4 mergers of equals this side of Christmas, and it's clear that the big guys want to stay away from exploration. Not very good at it, not very efficient at it, and they just want to replace resources and reserves. It's the easy option. It's the easy option for them, and but believe it or not, probably the cheaper option for them. How do the juniors, and I'm going to go, sub a couple of $100 million, kind of level junior explorers. How do they encourage or help affect change in the way that juniors get funded, or has it always been thus, and we're just going to have to suck it up, and those who survive, and those who don't? I mean, how do you view the future, Jorge?
Yeah, I wonder this myself quite often as well. I think it's definitely, the market is definitely changing in that sense. I would make a distinction that I think what you're saying applies much more into gold, but it's still relevant to silver. I think the silver story, as it relates to production, it still has a lot of chapters to be written. We all get the senses that something has got to give at some point. So I think it's at some point our group of companies should attract attention from, let's say, what happens if silver really does get to a $40-$50 price range, paired with some real one conversation that I had with one of the gentlemen from Samsung procurement in Mexico City a number of years ago, that he was asking him his view on silver. He said, look, the corporate headquarters just always tells me, make sure we don't want to be in a situation where we wake up and, we cannot put the next model of phones because we can't get silver. At the time, Samsung CT, which is their procurement arm, was doing deals. I don't know if you remember. I think they did a deal with Avino Silver, with maybe another producer to forward buy their production because they wanted to have that certainty. So I think that will change. That'll be hopefully at some point that light for silver. However, for in terms of the funding model, we are at a situation where I think it will have to change, because it's just too difficult to move projects as a junior with the speed that you have, if you don't have at least start seeing the mid tiers and the majors. Let's say, for instance, at least buying a stake in the company or doing JVs. Now, I have to say, in the silver space, I have seen a lot of interest, at least in engaging in discussions, especially for our projects in Nevada, where there's so many, mid tiers and majors. There's certainly a lot of, interest in looking around, doing site visits, signing NDAs, and I think, there is a genuine interest for projects that have high grade silver potential and size potential. So I think you saw, for instance, how dramatic with Hercules Silver a few months ago. I think that kind of project, there's still a big market for. And then again, I think you had Alex Langer recently with Sierra Madrigal Silver. Those guys are going to go into production soon. What happens when that production, I think right now is going to be $30 an ounce. That's a very good price to start producing when you're basically ready to go and have a very low cost of mining. But what happens when that $30 becomes substantially higher? Those numbers are very attractive. I wouldn't be surprised if then you get some of the mid tiers start buying silver producing projects, even if they're small, because that's what happened in the last cycle as well. The way that First Majestic was put together was not with started with a massive silver mine. It was a collection of, actually, frankly speaking, quite small mining operations with 4 or 5 small silver operations, and then all of a sudden you have a mid-tier producer. So silver is very unique, but definitely I think the best thing that we can do in the companies in our space is just focus on advancing the projects as best as we can, managing our capital, and try to do the best. And in our company, we do a concerted effort to reach out to the mid tiers and the senior producers to make sure they're aware of our projects and go down that road.
I got to jump off of Jorge. I can't help myself, right? Because I would like to make a prophecy, right? When silver price goes up, right, and companies start going up, right? Greed will enter back into the market. So normally the old catalyst was bigger companies, majors buying out and doing big buyouts, and that gets everybody excited, and it trickles down, right? And it trickles down. I'll make a prophecy, right? If the majors aren't buying anybody and Samson needs silver, then you're going to start seeing a lot more offtake agreements. And that is going to be the excitement in market, that people are going to see a pathway. And I also think that means that focusing on a pathway to production is going to be more important moving forward. I also think I'll be shocked if there's a lot of movement even in the mid tiers for silver projects, because they're just not big enough. But if you look at First Majestic, it's a great example. It's going to be us consolidating. And that's going to drive excitement into market, right? There's going to be new mid tiers that come out of this, right? Because we will see a massive shift in our valuation through consolidation and moving things forward, getting small projects tied again, and we can make those jumps up until we face the same problem that gold producers pretty much have, and that's there's no big silver projects. Now what do I do? Right? But we're years away from that. So I think there's going to be consolidation within the market. I think that that's going to drive a lot of the financing. There's going to be excitement coming back. So just a little bit more patience, but our day will come.
Well, but here's the problem. Here's the problem with that is that there are people out there who play the market, and then there are people out there who are trying to build big silver companies, right? So, the old cliche of what do you get when you merge two $100 million companies? You get one $100 million company, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that time and time again, where perhaps it's a merger not of equal or equally desperate companies, rather than for the right reasons. So I hope you're right, Ian, and I hope the right people go through that process, because a roll up might be the way to go. It might be the way to attract institutional investors. It might be the way to get funded, or at least be able to work out the quickest route to get into some kind of revenue. I mean, I asked you earlier in the conversation, I think you were very excited about another fine macro point you're making, but it was around the need for companies to control what they can control, to Jorge's point. And we've seen companies look to get into production quicker because it was a means of creating revenue and a route to market, and say to people, look, we know what we're doing. We're going to change the old model of drill to the edge of the envelope and focus a bit more Australian style of let's get some revenue going. You're doing that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Because 100 million and plus 100 million in market cap equals a $100 million company, but 100 million in EBITDA and 100 million in EBITDA is definitely $200 million in EBITDA. So I do think there's going to be more of a shift. When you start looking at old projects, you're like, why the heck did you drill up to 4 billion tons of resource, right? What, right? And but a market told you to. That's right, because that is the way you create value. And it's also, I'm a mining engineer, to be fair, so I do have that tendency to look at things on how to get them into production. So yes, we see our number one value proposition is that there's a pathway over 100 million ounces. But I also see the number two and see the writing on the wall, right? We need a pathway to production. And that's why we're also pursuing a production scale project it's obviously a lot easier to modify and upgrade a permit than getting a brand new permit. So having something just in production demonstrates to market you can do it. It demonstrates the economics. It demonstrates the metallurgy. It demonstrates the mining method. It demonstrates so many things, but it also obviously creates a pathway to increase your production quicker. So it doesn't cost a lot of money to build a 50 ton per day plant. I can tell you that. You go to the supermarket in China and pull it off the shelf. Right. So it's not a crazy concept. It's not something you have to do a feasibility study on, right? It's because it's very little capital at risk. And so that is the pathway we're taking. And I want, yes, I want to have my cake and eat it too, because I still want to be valued on my number of ounces of silver in the ground and not on my EBITDA yet. Right. But when we need to, we can turn that switch, because again, I don't want to get caught doing, in the last big cycle, I think 50% of all the big CEOs got fired because they did what market told them to do, right? And then when the market shifted, then they were dumb for not expecting, inflationary costs to go up, and so you gotta be smart, right? You gotta give market what it wants, but also try and predict what's going to happen down the road.
Never a truer word, Jason. I mean, for you, what's your take on this on how to play the market? Because I agree with what both the other boys have said. With regards to, yes, you kind of got to do what the market says, because that's the way it has rewarded itself. Doesn't necessarily suit companies trying to get into production, because you've got to play both hands, as it were. You got to tell both stories at the same time. It's hard. Certainly when you're starting out, you've got to spend your money efficiently, but at the same time, you've got to give the market those headlines which it desires. I mean, how do you balance the two of those things?
Well, when you look at a company like ours, we don't have a resource yet. So, talking about production is extremely premature at our point. So, we really have to show a progression, a path to a resource first. And, I think one of the key components there is you really have to have high quality projects like that. That's where it all starts. And we all know in exploration that not every idea works, but if you can be in a district, in a location such as we are with both our projects, we have the Keno mine next door to us in Keno Hill, and then we have at our Tim project in southern Yukon, you've got Coeur Silvertip mine that they're just rejigging right now. So we know we're in proven areas. These are silver districts. We're looking for high grade. So that's another, I think, a really key component that's going to, drive investment or attract investment anyways. And then showing that path, like for us, it's pretty obvious that if we have a project next door to Hecla at the Keno mine, they're an obvious funder and down the road suitor for us, right? So that kind of drives our strategy. So we're partnered with Coeur at our Tim project, 17 kilometers north of their Silvertip mine project. So that's the kind of the approach we're taking. But, we can lay out a path to, 15, 25, 50 million ounces of silver here with not that much drilling, as long as Mother Nature endows these targets like we think they are. But we can look at the rest of the Keno district and say, we're drilling the same thing. We know how these occur. It's well studied. We can go out and now just execute on that. And I think that's a big part of the focus and the strategy for us. We can make that projection to show, here's what's been done. We're doing that same process on the same target, same style of target in the same region, and that shows a clear potential path forward for us.
And if we look in maybe a few months down the road or a year down into the future, there's going to be probably 30 times more silver companies out there, right? So also making sure, myself, and I'm probably speaking for Jason and Jorge, is being able to demonstrate the quality of the team, the quality of the projects, and separate yourself as early as possible from the riffraff, right? Because we'll probably get back to those old days where people have moose pasture and just living off of being able to raise a few $1,000,000 easily every so often, and being able to separate yourself from the pack is going to be critically important.
With any lucky, and they'll be going into gold, because gold have caught a bit of shine too, and they'll go into gold rather than silver.
We'll see. I hope you're wrong.
True.
That means a lot of really good stuff for silver.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Right, guys. Look, just conscious of time here. I know you guys, a couple of you got places to be after this. I'm going to ask you all to, probably in the same order you introduced yourselves, Ian, Jorge, Jason, just give us a 2-minute sales pitch on why people should be looking at your company. So, Ian, take us away.
So again, Outcrop Silver has its flagship project, Santa Ana. We currently now have 2 drills drilling on it. We're getting into news flow that will be coming out very soon, that we're now starting to see results coming out of that drill program. And we are true primary silver resource with over 37 million ounces to date. 75% of the value is in silver. We're currently drilling on proving out our overall trend of how we can get over 100 million ounces. And at the same time, very intelligent on how to manage this growing backwind that we have on our backs with silver.
Yeah, so for our company, for Raina Silver, our main focus is district scale exploration, focusing, as I said, on high-grade silver and size potential. We have 2 projects that came originally from Mag Silver. We've moving them both forward, although we haven't planned to drill it this year. A little bit waiting to see what happens in the Mexican election. However, those projects are ready to get back into drilling as soon as we feel comfortable to do that. And then this year we're going to be exploring a very exciting project called the Griffin project that it's just north of I-80's Ruby Hill. And, what's happened at Ruby Hill, I think some of you might follow the story, is in a typically Carling district project right underneath and to the size of the open pit of Carling Gold mine. They started finding this stunning high-grade CRD mineralization with, hundreds of meters of high-grade silver with very high lead zinc credits as well. And we have a project that geologically looks very similar. We're just about 60 kilometers north of Ruby Hill. And the project has been drilled in the past. We have almost 12,000 meters of drilling, 4,000 surface samples with a lot of very high-grade silver, gold, lead zinc, and copper. So we've chose our targets. We're getting our crews ready to start the drill campaign in the next month or so. So please follow our company for that. And I guess I'll pass it to Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge. Silver North is a primary silver exploration stage company. Our two projects are both based in the Yukon. Our flagship is Haldane in the historic Keno Hill district, where we've been really fortunate to be able to amass a land position at the western end of the district that really is kind of the underexplored part of the Keno Hill area, largely because just the way the glacial history of the area is, it exposed a lot of the mineralization to the east where the main Keno Hill deposits are, but on the west end of the district where we are, a lot of these deposits remain covered. So what that has done is meant the old timers couldn't find it in the early 1900s, but with our modern techniques, we've been able to uncover new vein systems. These are in the same rocks that host Keno Hill. So we've made new discoveries. I mentioned earlier, we made a discovery at what's called our West Fault target, 111 grams silver over almost 9 meters. We followed that up with high-grade intersections of over 1,300 grams per ton silver, and now have this system over about a 90 by 100 meter panel. And we've got other targets here. We've got cumulatively, if you look at all the veins in this district that on our property, there's about 12 kilometers of cumulative vein strike there, and we've explored about 600 meters of it. There's only been 27 holes drilled on the property through its 100-year history. So we feel really good about our potential to not only build on our West Fault target, but also at some of these other targets that we've identified through soil geochemical methods and a little bit of prospecting. Tag on to that the fact that Silver North's got an option JV with Coeur Mining at our Tim project. They're funding exploration, which will include drilling at that project, like Jorge's projects. That's a CRD system, big potential. And with Coeur, the operator on that, taking their expertise, they've had a lot of ounces at Silvertip in the last few years, and they're going to take that expertise over to Tim. So we really have two opportunities to add tremendous value to our very small market cap company here this summer with drill programs both at Tim that should start sometime in the next month, and then later in the summer drilling at Haldane. And that's really, for a company like ours, that's where the value is adding ounces to our books. That's really what's going to drive our share price forward.
Brilliant. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. I think interesting time for silver. For those people watching this, listening to this, reading about this, feel free to contact these guys directly or us with any questions, and we'll pass those on for you. Three very interesting companies. I think you'll enjoy what you find, what you read. So, gentlemen, thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.